All right. You know what it is? You know who it is? We're back. Episode 4, I think, of the Fight Cast. Jake. We got a couple things to go over this weekend. We had the Glover Teixeira fight versus Thiago Santos. We had Devin Haney versus, I don't know how to say his last name, or his first name,
Yuri Orkis.
Yuri Orkis, Gamboa. And then a couple other things. We're going to go over a couple other fights this week. Coming up, there's a fight this weekend: Kell Brook versus Terrence Crawford, and Katie Taylor versus I forgot who she's fighting. But we're gonna go over
Miriam
those.
Gutierrez.
We're gonna have to start taking like fan interventions here, see what they want to hear us talk about. But yeah, so you want to start off with the UFC or boxing?
UFC. Let's do it because
All right. There was a bit of an upset this weekend. What'd you say?
Devin Haney fight was trash. So you go ahead and start.
There's an upset in UFC. I picked Thiago Santos, and a lot of people had Thiago Santos. So he was favored to win heavily, I think. I think he was like minus 300. And Glover Teixeira submitted him in like the third round. It was a pretty good fight. So like early on, I thought my prediction was about to be right because he got caught. He got hit like 3 or 4 times. Just like boom, boom, boom. And he was like wobbling a little bit. But then so Glover Teixeira is a vet. He's been in for a while, and he fought John Jones. Um, I forgot how long ago, but he fought John Jones for the title. And initially, when he came into the UFC, he was on like a 20 fight win streak, and then he lost to John Jones, and then he's like been on a 5 or 6 fight win streak since. So he's in like a weird position, but like he's an older dude who's like a decent striker, but he's really good at grappling. And he went up against Santos, who was supposed to be, like I said last week, like an up and comer, someone who's got a lot of fights under his belt, but like he's just been crushing it lately, and he just got absolutely like outclassed, and he did a terrible job basically on his feet because he had Teixeira, and it's like that's one of those things where where I was talking about Khabib a couple weeks ago, like when you see someone on the ground like that, like that's just like completely outclasses somebody. It's the same thing with boxing, like you see it like from the get go. And and it's different because that like he knew from the beginning he probably didn't want to go on the ground with Teixeira, and he was probably trying to stop it, but there's only so much you can do at that point. And his takedown defense was horrible. He got taken down like 3 or 4 times, like right from the get go, and it was just one of those things where he just literally got outclassed and just got exhausted on the ground. And Teixeira ended up getting him with like a rear naked choke, and I think he was just like so gassed that he just tapped right away. It wasn't even like it was just like he just gave up. Like, it was just, as soon as he got it around the neck, he just that's it. But it was like I said, he was a pretty big underdog there. He wasn't really looking like he was going to win that fight, and I would definitely say it was a huge upset because I don't know a lot of people that did pick him, and even the people that like Dana White was even talking about it after. He was like, I always count this guy out, and he always ends up showing up. So he wants to be in a title fight next, but there's not a lot of options because, like I said, he's in a weird position in terms of who he's going to fight, when he should fight, because his next fight is kind of you know it's either he tries to go after like John Jones again, or he tries to go after Stipe, or he tries to go after you know maybe Izzy or something like that. But I don't see that happening because um, it doesn't really make sense. But there's not really a fight for him to be had because he already went up for the belt and they lost like handily, and they're talking about like putting him up against John Jones. But even like you would imagine that like 5 years ago someone was a little bit better than they are now, especially as you get older as a fighter. So going against someone like John Jones now is even tougher. So there's not really a lot of options for him, but it was still a good fight nonetheless. And it was he upset him, and like I said, it's one of those things where you see it right away. He just got like outclassed from the beginning. I was wrong because I think I said Santos would knock him out within like 2 or 3 rounds, and he didn't come close. Like I said, he hit him a couple times in the beginning, but that was really about it. And there was a good fight before that. I forgot the guy's name, but it was fight of the night, and those guys were trading blows like crazy. But yeah, I mean, other than that, that fight was pretty. It was just you would hate it. It was like 90% on the ground. There was basically like like I said, he early on he was throwing punches, and then he took him down the first round, and the rest of the time he was on the ground. And the second round he got him down, rest of he got him in a rear naked choke at the end of the second round, and then timer went off. I think it was the second round of the first round, but he got saved by the bell, and then just gave it up again, and that was it. Then he just got tapped. This weekend there is a fight that was supposed to be really good that I talked about last weekend, which was uh, Makaeva or something like that. I forgot how to pronounce his last name. He's a Russian dude. He's like a Khabib uh, apprentice, but he got sick or got MRSA or something like that, or staph infection, so he's out. So Rafael dos Anjos is fighting this guy who stepped up on 5 days' notice, Paul Felder, who is like a known fighter. He's an Irish fighter, and he's like more.
Oh, he's gonna win.
What is
He's gonna
that?
win. He's gonna win. He's Irish.
Yeah,
He's
he's
gonna.
Irish. Yeah. He's usually a broadcaster, but he's stepping in on 5 days' notice. So
He's gonna win.
maybe. I mean, I don't know what the odds are, but I could definitely see it happening.
Listen, every time I've seen Dos Anjos fight, I have not been impressed.
Yeah.
I think this dude is like, again, we talk about lazy punches in MMA. He's like the one of the worst in terms of technique. So
Yeah. And like, he's had a couple good fights, but he's been one of those dudes that like doesn't really show up when it's time to like show up. And he was supposed to fight Connor at one point, and then he's kind of like I don't know. Do you know Cowboy Cerrone? Donald Cerrone?
yeah,
Like he's just one of like another one like that where and I don't know if you know anybody in boxing that compares to that, but like, it's like when the lights shine brightest, he's not there. Like he's never there. And he's just
yeah,
always kind of like falling to the side or just not, like last 5 fights, Cowboy's on like a 5-fight losing streak. And like every time he goes in, he's like, oh yeah, Cowboy wasn't there. And it's like, all right, dude, well, like how many more of those do you have before you maybe like call it quits? Cause like you can't just like keep showing up like that and asking for big fights. But this is a chance for Dos Anjos to either like ruin the rest of his career or like make the rest of his career, and at least put himself in a position where he might be able to get something past that. But I think that's past that. I don't know if there's anything. Yeah, the rest of the card's looking a little sleepy. So other than that, updates: Connor and Poirier, January 23rd. That's official.
nice.
And then yeah, that's really it. So like I said, this weekend for UFC it was good fights if you're into the grappling and whatnot. It was nice to see the grappling because he got him in a lot of different ways, and he didn't really have an answer. He was on his back basically the whole time until he rolled over and got choked. So, but Glover Teixeira is just like a vet. It's just like a good. It's cool to see like the old guys step up and just be like, because sometimes you see these guys who in UFC are just like these punchers. Like there's guys like Francis Ngannou, who just like heavy hitters, and like in UFC, it's not, And I wanted to ask you this too because I saw a clip, and I immediately as soon as I heard it, I thought of you. But you got these heavy punchers who are stepping in the UFC, but there's so much more to it that you have to like develop a full game. I saw a video clip. Do you know who Darren Till is?
Mm-hmm.
So Darren Till was
Yep.
talking to a reporter or something. He was in his car. It looked like more of like a video, like a YouTube video or a documentary. And they were talking about like fighters, and he was talking about, which obviously probably doesn't make sense because Joshua's a heavyweight, but he was like, people would say if Joshua and Darren Till were to fight, that Anthony Joshua would win. And Darren Till was like, that's not true because I just single leg takedown and choke him out and he wouldn't beat me. And I know we've had this conversation a couple times. And, what's I know your opinion is the boxer's gotta, because it's stand up at first, but I'm curious as to what you think about that statement.
Well, we said this last week. Either guy going into the other game with only a couple months notice, like a couple
Yeah.
months to train for that sport, is not going to do well.
Yeah.
So if you're talking about Joshua goes in with like, okay, we're going to plan the fight out now. We got 3 months to get ready for the fight. Yeah, of course, Joshua's not going to do well. You need a lot longer to train for the things that you're going to see in the ring or the octagon.
Yeah.
But again, listen, in my opinion, if it comes down to a street fight, like we were just talking about those guys.
Yeah. I think that's what they were talking about. I don't.
If that's what they're talking about, that single leg takedown bullshit and grappling, that don't go in the street.
Yeah.
I've been in enough fights to against wrestlers and jujitsu dudes to know that if you can't throw a punch, if you're just gonna rely on grabbing a dude, you're gonna get kneed in the face, you're gonna get headbutted, you're gonna get elbowed, you're gonna get punched, and you're gonna get beat the fuck up.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that and that's
I,
one of the things I've
so
realized.
I don't think it's that simple. Like, oh, I'm gonna grab a dude.
Yeah.
First of all, Anthony Joshua's a big, strong dude.
Yeah.
So you tell me like you go grab him, like he ain't gonna grab you back and grab your head, and you're gonna get out of that headlock.
Yeah.
Joshua will get you in a headlock. His big ass arms. You just I'm gonna get out of that. Yeah. Like I think it's just.
And like I understand,
I'm not giving enough credit to what a guy knows and how tough a guy is to just say I'm gonna do this and it's all over. Because what's like I'm gonna get him a single leg takedown and then like there takes some. It's not like I'm gonna grab him and then that's it. It's over.
Yeah.
Like you have to get him in a position to where it's like, okay, now I have him. He's not getting out of it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas a punch, it's like, dude, if he hits you, there is no like, I'm gonna wiggle my way out of this. Yeah. It's over. You're sleeping.
Yeah.
So it's a lot easier for someone to say, I'm just gonna crack him, put him to sleep, than it is for like, I'm gonna grab him, put him in a headlock or an ankle lock or whatever the fuck, because that takes some. It takes a little bit of time to get into that position where a guy, whether or not he knows how to defend it, at least has the opportunity to defend it.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking about in a street fight, right? He has
I was gonna say
way out of it. So, and again, you go grab a dude. Like I've done this before. Like I had a big wrestler. I was in the street fight, got me in a headlock, and I could feel immediately his strength. Like if this dude squeezed hard enough, he might have like cracked my jaw. Mm-hmm. And I bit the shit out of his forearm and made him let go. So it's like there are factors in the street fight. These guys like completely, no, I'm just going to grab him. It don't work like that, man.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because, when I started jiu-jitsu, I obviously enjoy it because I continue to do it. But like, it was one of those things where I noticed right away that like, it's practical to a certain degree. And like, it can definitely help in a lot of situations. But like, I noticed right away. And, I'm not saying that I'm doing it to like ever want to hurt somebody. I don't think anybody does it to want to hurt. I mean, well, that's not true. I think people do it to want to hurt somebody, but you do it and then like it's just a good confidence boost to know that like if the situation ever comes, you can use it or defend yourself or whatever you want to call it. But I noticed very early that like a lot of people who are really good at jujitsu, you see it time and time again. Like I think, and that's why I think it's interesting because Khabib, and it's been like the last 3 weeks because Khabib and Texeira are both like dominant grapplers who have showed up against strikers. But from what I've seen in the past, usually these people who are like dominant grapplers don't do well against dominant strikers. So like, and that's why, like I said, when Connor fought Chad Mendes, that was supposed to be like his kryptonite. It was a wrestler who was an okay puncher, but like once he got him on the ground, that was it. And then
it's the same thing against Eddie Alvarez too. I heard.
Yeah. Eddie Alvarez was supposed to be a grappler. Izzy, when he fought Costa, like he was supposed to be like he was like I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and Izzy was like all right. And it's like you see these guys who are just have like, maybe it's their attributes that help them, but like when you can throw a punch, a well placed punch, and like you semi know what you're doing, like it's hard to get to a level where you can actually take someone down, especially if like the kicks too. If you have kicks and you can place those correctly, like it's hard to get somebody on the ground. Yeah, like if you get someone on the ground, it's going to be good, but like you said, you're going to have to take a couple punches, you're going to take a couple shots. But that's why I think it's so important to like from a perspective of learning all this stuff is learning. I think that a boxer who learns, I don't know. I guess like I was going to say that I think a boxer who learns jujitsu might be a little bit more dangerous, but I guess
I think that if you can if you're real nice with your hands, if you at least know how to defend a takedown, mm-hmm. you're gonna win almost every time.
Yeah.
You're gonna win almost every time. And because again, look, I've never taken any jiu-jitsu or wrestling or no shit like that. But I've been in enough fights where against everyone's bigger than me. But I've been in enough fights against bigger guys that I've gotten to the point where I can, if someone grabs me, has my arm in a lock or got me in a headlock, I've been able to do a well enough job to wiggle away to a point where I can land a shot. And then once I start landing shots, that's when fights change. All right. And again, like some of these guys that like I don't know how good they are. Like I've been in fights with guys like well, I know at least one of the guys I got into a fight with was a high school championship level wrestler.
Russell, yeah.
But I've been in there with other guys who have claimed it, like, oh, I do jujitsu. I don't know how good they are. I don't know how valid their claims are. But I've been able to do well enough to get away. All I needed was that few inches of space, and it's like, boom, I land some shots, and then that's different. Now guys don't want to grab me, right? They want to back away because I was able to hurt them. So the, I think if a boxer knows how to defend just okay, that if they can get out, like have that 2-3 seconds to get away from getting that death lock, if they can get out of that, I would take them every time.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm a little biased, but it comes from experience too.
No, I'm just curious because, like I said, I've thought about that a lot, and it's part of the reason why I started doing Muay Thai as well was because I was focusing on jujitsu, and like I said, I really enjoy it, but like I started to realize that like being a elite level puncher is going to help no matter what. And like I said, I don't plan on getting any fights unless I absolutely have to. But like, it's always. I think it's just a cool thing to do. Is like when learning to kick and punch is just like even better. And then if it comes down to it, knowing jujitsu is just something that is in your back pocket if it ever gets to that point.
You think about it like this too. Warfare has changed over time.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the range of weapons.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with hand-to-hand combat, right? If your range of weapon, if your weapon has longer range than the other guy's weapon, you have an advantage.
Yeah.
What has a longer range? My punch, or you're fucking grabbing me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It really comes down to logic, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm good at punching and you're good at grappling, I have an advantage because my weapon has longer range.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I think that's the simplest way to put it.
Yeah. No, it's interesting to think about, and like it's been shown time and time again.
Since I was a kid.
What'd you say?
I'm thinking about this since I was a kid.
No, yeah, and like I mean I've never been close to it. I've never even sniffed a fight, so I don't really know for sure. And like obviously, I'm sure you've been in your fair share of controlled and uncontrolled fights, so you'd know better than me, especially in terms of like going against somebody who claims to have a background in like jujitsu or something like that, and especially I'm sure.
Well, I can tell you this. Listen, as a side note, it always works like that, right? Like someone claims to be this, and then after the fight is over, like those claims go away. So like, who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Yeah. All right. So Haney versus Gamboa said it was a lackluster fight. There wasn't really much to it.
No, yeah, it was. I mean, I expected what I saw to a degree, where Haney used his boxing skill, his range, his athleticism, his youth to stay on the outside and just box the shit out of Gamboa, who is a guy that 10 years ago was like 126-pound Mike Tyson.
Yeah, wasn't he like one of the number? He was like number one, right?
Yeah. He was undefeated with his knockout percentage was over 90%. Like he had only gone the distance a few times until his first loss.
Who did he lose to the first time? Because I think I remember watching that fight, and it was like pretty like, wasn't it like he wasn't supposed to lose? Like, wasn't it like a pretty big fight that he wasn't supposed to lose, and he got like fucked up pretty good?
I don't remember who his first loss was to.
Google remembers.
Google remembers everything. Yeah, but Gamboa used to be this guy that was very explosive with his feet, get in and throw these deadly hooks, had a lot of speed, a lot of power. And he's a guy now that just doesn't have legs under him anymore. So he was a sitting target for Devin Haney, and Devin Haney couldn't get him out of there. And Devin, he said, "Oh, I'm going to knock him down 4 times. I'm going to get him out of there before Tank did, and all this." And he caught him with some really clean shots, and they didn't seem to affect him. So it was just, and Haney did not take advantage, in my opinion, of the moments in the fight when he probably could have landed some more heavy shots, like an accumulation of heavy shots after he caught him with one clean one.
Mhm.
He sort of got back behind his jab, which again, I know that's his style. He boxes, but again, you talk all that shit and you have a dude where, you got him good. Um, and he didn't go after him.
Yeah.
So and in turn, what happened was he would hit Gamboa with a clean shot. Gamboa would then get in on the inside, throw one or two, and then just tie up. Because again, his legs weren't there, man. He couldn't get out of the way. And so it was a lot of that. It was Haney laying it up. He was pot shotting him from the outside. Gamboa every now and then would lay in something, then tie up. You know what I mean? Haney would lay in something big, Gamboa would tie up. And so there wasn't a lot going on. And again, Haney talked a lot of shit, and he talked a lot of shit after the fight about how um, he wants Tio and he wants Tank. And to be honest with you, I think he's lying. I don't think he wants any of that. I don't think he has the power um, to be in the ring with any of those guys. I don't.
Is he at a skill level with those guys, or is he just lacking?
Skill wise, man, he could box. He could box with anybody. Haney could box with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that, especially a guy like Tio, who has the boxing skills that are on par with Haney, but then has that power that is out of this world. So I don't think he wants that fight. I think he's a better boxer than Tank Davis.
Mm-hmm.
But again, Tank is such a great counter puncher and he's got that power that if he does catch him, I think that's over. So I don't think Haney would last in those fights. And I think we're coming up, on an era here where these 130 pounders, 135 pounders, 140 pounders are all going to be forced to fight each other.
Yeah, that's good.
I don't think fans care about Devin Haney being 25-0 when he hasn't really fought anyone. I don't think anyone cares. Right? Even Ryan Garcia is about to fight Luke Campbell in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
That's a step up for him. And then Garcia said he wants to fight Tank.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're going to get all these guys fighting each other. And I think that if
somebody's always got to go.
Yeah, and if Devin Haney doesn't step up and fight one of those guys soon, I think he's gonna fade away. No one's gonna care. No one cares that you beat up, that you outboxed a 39-year-old Yuriorkis Gamboa. No one cares.
Yeah.
I mean, you weren't in any danger, and you couldn't get the guy out of there. And he looked like he looked like he might as well have been in a fucking wheelchair.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you couldn't get him out of there, so it's not a good look. Yeah. And it didn't make for a very exciting fight.
Yeah, so
even for someone like me who respects the technique and all that, there wasn't a whole lot of technique to take away from that. He didn't do anything special. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing is when you don't stand out, and I think that's something that people disregard too much is when you're supposed to be when you're put in a position sometimes to stand out and you don't, that's just as much as that's just as on par with being in a position where it's almost as equal in the opposite direction, whereas you're put in a position where you shouldn't succeed and you do. When you're in a position where you need to take that next step and you're against someone who you clearly should be better than, and then you don't show up or you don't perform or you don't take away or don't give people what they were looking to see, then you don't get those chances too often, especially I was just looking at Gamboa's record. So his first loss was in 2014 to Terrence Crawford. Then Robinson Castellanos in 2017. And then his last two losses were Davis and Haney. But other than that, he's 30-4. And I would say that's a, pretty big name and pretty good fight record for the most part. Looks like he lost to a lot of these recent people, or once he stepped up against some bigger names. But when you're looking to take that next step, it's going to be the same thing for Ryan Garcia. It's going to be the same thing for these guys who are coming up. These are people that they're giving you for a reason. Luke Campbell isn't in Ryan Garcia's class, but is Ryan Garcia going to show up and prove that he's worthy of taking one of these guys, or is he going to just do it and get it done?
To Ryan Garcia and his team's credit, Luke Campbell, he poses somewhat of a threat because he's tall, he's long, and he can box, and he's tough. He's not going to go anywhere. Right? Yeah. I mean, Ryan Garcia is going to have to really fuck him up to get him out of there, or outbox him for 12 rounds. one or the other. You know what I mean? Gamboa, there was no threat because he didn't have his legs under him. There was no power there in any of his shots.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and again, because his legs weren't there, he was a sitting target. And the thing is, like, Gamboa was known for having a soft chin.
Mhm.
And again, Devin Haney is not known as a knockout artist, but he's knocked out people before. And then you get in there and you land these clean shots on a guy who's known, he's been down 14 or 15 times in his career.
Yeah.
A guy that's been down that much and you couldn't get him out of there after claiming I'm going to knock him down 4 times. It's not a good look. That's
Yeah.
not, he did not come out of that fight looking the way he should have looked,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And like I said, that I that happens a lot with guys, and I think that you know that happens more often than not, and it gives you that when someone can show up and they're able to kind of like get to that point, it's a lot makes a lot more of a fighter out of them. Like it makes them that much more interesting to watch and pay attention to and kind of like see through and whatnot. And like especially with like you said, the guys that are coming up now, like this will be a fun time because like it's always better when the guys have to fight each other. Like when people are forced to fight each other and they're not able to like duck each other or not have to worry about anything, it's better for a fighter to and the sport to have to go against the number one versus the number two and the number three versus four, and then you mix all them together to create a good championship fight. Like it sucks having to see like Canelo not have any opponents. Like
Yeah.
there's nothing good about it. Like everyone wants to see Canelo box, but like is he gonna fight Triple G for the fourth time? Like what's he gonna do? Like that's really his only option there. And then like you go down and then you're looking at all these guys like once like it's cool to have Lopez and then have Davis and then have Garcia and then have Haney. Like there's options there that at least there's good fights to be made. Um,
Yeah.
once some of the divisions get out of hand, where it's just like like and like a guy like Canelo too is just like he's so far and above everybody else that it's like there's no good fights. He could fight somebody, but there's no like good fights.
Yeah,
And
that's what. And to be honest, like, see, but in Canelo's case, it's not really his fault
yeah,
because there just aren't that many bodies at that weight for him
yeah,
right now that people know.
yeah,
Um, but the lightweight division, those 135, it's crowded. Like people
yeah,
know these names, so they can't run from each other for that long
mhm,
and expect to continue to have fan support. You know
mhm,
what I mean? They have to because people know that those other names are out there. Like you have to be a real hardcore boxing fan to name some of the guys that are in line to fight Canelo
mhm,
because there just aren't that many bodies there. He's fucking cleaned it out. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And that's what one of these guys at lightweight needs to do that. They need to clean that shit out, beat all those guys, and then there's nothing anyone can say about them.
yeah,
They can move up, lose, it doesn't matter. But if they go at least fight those other names in the division right now, that's how you become the guy like Canelo.
yep, yeah. And I think that overall they'll step up and they're going to have to. And I think that right now it's a good spot for boxing because they're going to get all these good young guys that are coming up that are solid fighters and like they're young too. That's the most important thing is they're young.
Yeah.
So it's like there's always going to be, and I think really right now I think fighting's kind of like coming back a little bit in terms of like it's what do you call it, like it's the following, like the following's growing. I think as the fighters are becoming more and more like vocal and social and they're leading a new following for the sport after Mayweather had left, and it's a weird time because like in in boxing Mayweather was kind of carrying it for a while and he was just like the face of boxing, and now when it's kind of like the NBA. Like you go through like this dark year, or these dark years once like the Jordans leave and the LeBrons leave, or like when LeBron leaves the NBA, there's going to be like a void to be filled, whether that's by a Steph Curry or like that. It's just going to happen, and like the ratings are going to go down, and there's not going to be same thing as Jordan when Jordan left. The ratings plummeted when it happens in all sports, and it's good when you get these people who are um, just like figures that you can watch and know like this is gonna be a good fight. This is gonna be a good fight. This is gonna be a great fight, and that's why the UFC's done so well recently is because they have characters and they're very good at like building stories.
Yeah.
And like the sports who build the best stories oftentimes get the most viewings. And that's why the NBA has been so popular because they've they've built like this villain story, like the hero versus the villain of like, ever since really LeBron went to Miami, it was this, he's the villain and everybody wants to beat Miami. And then like they do a really good job at putting a storyline to the season of, who should get MVP, why should they get MVP,
Yeah.
and like boxing doesn't do a great job of storytelling. Maybe because that's just how the people are that are boxers. They're usually not like the storytelling type, or they're just like foreigners, so they're not really like people who are into the culture of like the US. Um, and then fighters in UFC, like they do a better job of selling the fights. Like Connor does a great job himself of selling the fights. The story of Khabib with his dad, and then like just his background of wrestling bears, and like all like they do a really good job of selling the person. So it's a lot better to like watch the fights. And like if these promoters did a better job of like selling the stories of these guys, besides like the hardcore fans, they'd probably get a lot more of those people following. And it
Yeah.
would just, but as these young guys come up, it's going to be better and better, and they're going to be able to follow more and more. And I'm excited for it because I think that, you know, as I've talked to you more about it, and as I've dove deeper into like watching over the past 6 months, especially because it's been one of the only things that's been on besides like basketball, when it came back on, but like UFC and boxing were some of the, I think they were the first things to come back, right? Like they were the only
Yeah.
two. Yeah. So like, being able to watch those has been cool. And like, it's been cool to dive back into it because, for a while you kind of get like, you get lucky when you get like the Floyds of boxing because it's just like, oh yeah, like, you just watch that dude, and then LeBron's like, then they're not there, and it's like, oh, like what the, like you don't get to watch LeBron anymore, you don't get to watch Floyd anymore, and now it's like, who's that next person to step up? And that's, it happens, but it's like it's always there to fill. And I think it's cool to see all these guys fight for that, to like kind of fill that next, no, whether they won't be, no one's gonna ever be Floyd again, and no one ever be LeBron again, but like, it just happens, and then the next person steps up, and it's the next of the next of the next, and they just
Yeah.
carry whatever the sport is.
Yeah.
Um so really, you said that he's got a lack of opponents, right? There's really nothing for him to really fight next because of, just his level of skill and where he's at, and the other
Canelo.
guys really just don't have a
Yeah.
desire.
Well, in Canelo's case, it's just at that particular weight. I mean, again, there's Charlo is talking about fighting him. Willie Monroe is on that list. Um, the most buzz has come from Caleb Plant. Like there's that's been building. Like Caleb Plant might be the next in line to fight Canelo, which again, I'll admit it'll be exciting. Caleb Plant's got some skill. He's a white guy,
Hmm.
so anytime that you get a white guy that can actually throw his hands, it becomes interesting.
Hmm.
Uh, he's got some skill. He's got speed. He's got power. One of these guys with a really interesting backstory. But I mean, again, being a realist, it's like he's not touching Canelo.
Yeah.
So while the build-up for the fight will be interesting, I think it would get eyes. Like Canelo's going to bring people to the fight no matter what, right? Um, but I think that is probably financially makes the most sense.
Hmm.
I don't know about fight wise if it makes the most sense. I think maybe Charlo would make the most sense fight wise, but I still don't think he's in the class with Canelo. So
You think this
um,
will like hurt Canelo long term, like legacy wise, like not having really
no,
anybody there?
nope, because he's already like if he were to retire now, it's like this dude started when he was 15.
Hmm.
His only loss was to Mayweather, one of the greatest boxers ever. And then he won championships in multiple divisions, moved all the way up from welterweight to light heavy and won championships. He could retire tomorrow and it wouldn't matter. He'd still be,
I would pay absurd amount of money to see him against Floyd now, like at their both of their peaks. I mean, Floyd would
yeah.
probably still win, but
I mean, yeah, but I mean, again, it's a totally different thing now because Canelo's a much bigger guy naturally than he was at
yeah,
22. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Again, like he went to light heavy and beat the fucking shit out of Sergey Kovalev. I
Yeah.
mean, like, and Kovalev has a jab that was knocking guys out. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, Canelo's just his legacy can only it's only going to get better. You know, whether or not there are guys there, um, if he continues to win, and us people looking at it as he doesn't have an opponent because he's so good.
Yeah.
Maybe it will hurt him, but I mean, anyone with any fucking sense I would look at that and be like, well, that's not his fault that he's, you know, that people aren't as good as him. And, you
Yeah.
know, what's he supposed to do?
Yeah.
Um,
I'm just
but
curious because there's been that argument in other sports where like it's just because of the era or because of who was around, and when people did certain things, it's just kind of like they've, and I guess it doesn't really matter because it's everyone's fucking opinion. So
dude,
but like,
it's happened in boxing a bunch of times. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, Mike Tyson is like, he's not known as one of the great heavyweights by a lot of people because there wasn't anyone for him to fight.
yeah,
Was was there not anyone for him to fight? Or was he just so much fucking better than all the guys in his era that it made them look bad?
yeah,
The same thing like Rocky Marciano. Like, now, granted, I think Rocky Marciano, that argument has a little bit more traction.
yeah,
Yet there wasn't a lot of guys there. I mean, because again, back in the 40s and 50s, I mean, there were wars, there were a lot of things going on. Um, but yeah, it's been in boxing, like, um, that lack of tests
yeah,
for a champion. And sometimes I think people like really overdo it on that. Like, oh, Mike Tyson isn't one of the best because there wasn't a lot of guys there. In my opinion, I just think guys were just not on that level, so it made them look shitty.
yeah,
Because I mean, he's fighting again. You're fighting guys that have one or two losses in 30, 40 fights. They got to be okay,
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
So yeah, I think there's always going to be that argument, like, oh, he doesn't have anyone to fight, so it tarnishes his legacy. I personally don't. I don't. If you have functioning eyeballs and you see a
yeah,
fucking guy fight and you know that he's that much better than everyone, I mean, that should be it. I mean, there's
yeah,
a bunch of people that know boxing that can use their fucking eyeballs and say, yeah, I mean, it's clear that he's way better than everyone else. Then that's it. I mean, why do we need to go into, oh, he doesn't really have anyone, so that hurts his legacy? That's garbage.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's an interesting conversation for me because I've always been one to enjoy debating legacy, as you know, because we've talked about a bunch with LeBron and Jordan,
Yeah,
and like in terms of
wrong
just
about
talking about their what.
which you're wrong about.
No. But it's something where I think that I think it's cool to see the guys who stand out in each generation in terms of sport, in terms of skill, and just like looking back and just seeing that, for the time that there was dudes who were just better. And to think that like moving forward, there's gonna be people who are better is like even scarier. Is like one day there will be someone who's like just as good, if not better than Canelo in terms of like weight class. And like, for basketball, I'll go back to it. There's gonna be someone who's better than, LeBron one day, and someone who has all the skills, and like it's just like it's crazy to think about, but like because you watch it live and you see them and you're like, they are fucking good. And then
Yeah,
like you're just like, wow, but there probably will, I don't know for sure, but there probably will be someone better, if not, as good as skill wise, as those guys. But it's a fun conversation for me to have.
yeah.
All right, so Crawford, Brook this weekend, another kind of I won't say lackluster fight, but not something we're looking forward to here on the Fight Cast.
Oh, I mean, I always look forward to seeing Crawford fight because he's one of those guys. Again, like the way that I viewed Mayweather. Like, I'm gonna, as a boxing guy, I'm gonna learn something from Crawford every time I see him fight. Um, the dude is just crafty. He's got the speed. He's got the power. His footwork is unreal. So it's always interesting and always exciting to see Crawford fight. Um, I don't think I think the lack of interest comes from Kell Brook not being a real threat to
Mhm.
Crawford. You know what I mean? That's where I think it's a little uninteresting. Brook is a tough guy. I don't think Crawford's going to knock him out because I think he is one. He's naturally bigger, and he is he's a real tough dude. Um, but he gets hit a lot. He gets Kell Brook gets hit a lot.
Mhm.
Uh, doesn't move his head as much as he should at the weight that he's at. Um, and a guy like Crawford, I think, is built to just pick apart a guy like Hillbrook, a guy he's a little bulkier. He's muscular. His arms are a little shorter. Um, and Crawford's got that range, that speed, that IQ. I just think he's going to pick him apart. So um, I would be shocked if Kilbrook was able to pull out a win. And so that's why I think it's a little uninteresting. I just think it's a ho hum. Crawford's going to win 12 rounds here. You know what I mean? Like that's still exciting though, because Crawford is not the type of dude to run away from the moment. Like
Mhm.
it comes down to it. He'll trade shots and he'll try to knock him out. Guarantee that. Crawford's a real dude. But I think it'll be a decision. I think it'll be I think it'll be a blowout. He's just too good. He's almost in that position now too. The Canelo's, and it's like not a lot of guys left at that weight for him to fight that pose a real threat. Um, so yeah, I think still definitely check it out. I mean, there's always something to pick up from Crawford. He's real guy that he switches stances a lot, and he's great from both stances. He's just a high IQ guy, man. High IQ guy. He's got a high motor, and he's a cool dude too, man. You hear him talk, he's just a cool dude. So like, it's always fun to watch him fight.
I was gonna say I was just looking at his record and whatnot, and like his past fights. And 2 fights ago he fought Amir Khan, so that's probably a pretty comparable fight to now, right?
Well, no, I mean, Khan is a guy that one. So this is actually kind of the opposite. Khan has
Is it?
a
Okay.
glass chin, right?
Yeah, he does. I know that.
Kelbrook has like a steel chin.
Okay.
Like Kelbrook was taking some like Triple G was teeing off on him, and he was still standing. His corner threw in the towel because I think he broke his orbital bone. He was taking a lot of punishment, but he's still standing.
Mhm.
Amir Khan goes down. Yeah, I mean, you blow on him the wrong way. Amir Khan calm down. But Amir Khan has some of the fastest hands you'll ever see in your life.
Yeah.
Which, again, Crawford's IQ, like he didn't have a problem because his timing was just on.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm just curious because he beat Amir Khan. Looks like a TKO in the 6th round.
yeah.
So I'm curious if that was something to compare to for like looking at predictions of the fight in terms of what you think will happen, or is it something to actually go back to and be like, hey, he did this to Amir Khan, possibly.
No, I mean, look, you could argue that Amir Khan and Kell Brook are like at the same talent level.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But they're different kinds of fighters. And again, like I think, the similarities you'll see is that the way that Crawford was able to land whatever he wanted on Khan, it would be the same thing against Kell Brook. I just think Kell Brook is too big and too tough
Yeah.
to go down. Not that Crawford doesn't have the power, because he certainly does. I just think it's going to fall on Kell Brook and his toughness in his heart, and you know what I mean. And so I think it'd be a tough task to get Kell Brook down and to keep him down.
Cool.
So I think I see the Crawford decision and a landslide.
All right, cool. So 12 rounds, unanimous decision type victory here. Cool. I mean, what do you know if that's what channel that's on or what station?
It's an ESPN, Top Rank.
All right, cool. All right. And then we got Katie Taylor. Is she on the same card?
No, her fight is on DAZN.
Okay.
Yeah, Katie Taylor, for those that don't know, she's an Irish chick, which automatically makes her better than everyone.
Badass.
Yeah. But she is, I mean, she is amazing, man. Like, honestly, like her and Clarissa Shields, um, I think there are a bunch of male boxers at that weight that they would whoop. Like,
Really?
that's how guaranteed, man. There are some guys out there that I could think of that these chicks would fuck them up, man. Um, but Katie Taylor is just like her boxing is beautiful. She throws, whirlwind combinations, uh, great head movement, moves her feet well, in and out, lateral movement. She's great at like getting in there. She uses like some great little tricks, getting on the inside, pulling people's guard away, catching with something, and she's got a great double left hook. Um, Something that I like to throw a lot. I used to like to throw.
So
Mine would,
double left hook.
yeah, double left hook. I would go to the body, then to the head. Um, she does that a lot,
Mm.
body head. But she also throws a quick one, like on some Roy Jones shit, to the head. Bah, bah, two left hooks real quick. Just beautiful punches, beautiful head movement. Like she looks so good, so comfortable, and so natural boxing. Um, I saw a couple highlights of her opponent, Miriam Gutierrez. She seems big and slow, holds her hands really low. So I mean, I'm gonna pick Katie Taylor to win the fight. I don't know. Um, I don't know if she's gonna land heavy enough shots to put her down. But so I'm gonna go Katie Taylor decision.
Cool. All right. Awesome. Yeah, I'm gonna have to check her out. Is that on? No, you said DAZN. I still
No,
have to check that out.
yeah,
That's on my list of to dos to check out because I want to make sure I have that for whenever Canelo fights. Um,
yeah.
cool. I mean, other than that, I don't. Got the next fights in the next few weeks. We got Tyson, which we're gonna talk about. We got Anthony Joshua, Danny Garcia next weekend, and um, Errol Spence Jr. should be a
Yeah, I
all
can't
right
wait.
fight. But Danny Green's kind of, or Danny Green, Danny Garcia. Talking about the Lakers, Danny Green. Danny Garcia has been. I don't think he's fought in a while, has he?
Yeah, he's one of these. I think his fight was like, yeah, it was a while before quarantine started. I think was his last fight.
That's
'Cause
definitely a
I
fight.
think he was coming back. Like his shit, I can't remember who he fought last, but I know I think he got injured, and that was off for a while.
I'm gonna check his Wikipedia's got all the answers.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, Ivan Redka,
Oh yeah.
and then Adrian Granados, and then he lost to Sean Porter. Then Brandon Rios, and then he lost to Keith Thurman.
So Thurman was his last fight.
No. Ivan Redka.
Yeah, Red. That was his last fight. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think he got injured after that. So I think he had a little layoff, and then we went into quarantine.
Oh, it was at the beginning of this year. Never mind. Yeah, January 25th.
Okay.
I thought he was like off for a while. So I think those are both next weekend, if I'm not mistaken. No, Tyson's the 28th. Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. is 28th. So we'll talk about that next 2 weeks, and then next week we'll talk about Danny Garcia, and then I don't think there's anything UFC really coming up. I mean, there's this weekend, which is going to be a fucking nightmare wash. Probably not going to be good. For official prediction, we'll go with the Irishman. We'll go for it. We'll go third round TKO, coming off of 5 days notice. Last person I saw do that was Jorge Masvidal, but he lost. He came off like 10-day notice or something like that. But let's go with Paul Felder, the Irishman, third
The
round
Irish all the
TKO.
way.
And then next week we got a lighter card. It's Devison Figueredo, Alex Perez, Valentina Shevchenko, which should be a good fight. Yeah, but anything else you want to cover?
No, That's it. That's the big stuff, man.
All right, cool.
And people should definitely go pay attention to Katie Taylor. Right?
Yeah,
She is a gem. Her and Clarissa Shields. I mean, because again, like it's women's boxing doesn't get a whole lot of attention, but goddamn, those two they can fight, man. They can fight for real. So
the fight I watched, there was a fight on Inoue's card. I forgot the girl's name. She
yeah,
was
Michaela Mayer.
yeah.
Yep.
Um,
She's good too.
yeah, she
Not,
looked real
not
good.
on the level of Katie Taylor and Clarissa Shields, but she's really good too. Yeah.
Yeah, the girl she fought was not very good. I mean, she was good, but she kept getting disqualified for holding, or
Yeah.
she got points taken off for holding.
Yeah.
But she looked really good. I was watching some YouTube highlights. I went after last week's episode. I went on and I was watching some old Adrian Broner, some old Floyd, some old just like Pacquiao, just like looking at some of these guys. And Adrian Broner was so good. And
Yeah.
and I watched a video of him. It was a week and 3 days ago at this point that he got arrested. He's got a nice beer belly and he's got no money apparently. And
Poor Broner, man. He guy had all the fucking talent in the world, man. And I don't know,
it's crazy.
I've seen, like I said, for where I come from Rochester, there was a ton of guys who I think were talented enough to be world champions, and life gets in the way sometimes, man.
How it usually goes. You let that shit get in the way, and you'll have a nice nothing to your name after. All right, so that's it for this week. If you guys have any suggestions or things you want to hear us talk about, or any, I don't know, like mock matchups, maybe just like dive into that stuff, let us know. We'll both put some stuff on our Instagrams.
Or if you want to hear me talk about some old street fighting stories, man, I'm all about it.
that too. I want to hear about those. But Jake Paul's supposed to be fighting not this weekend, but he's on the Tyson card.
Yeah, yep.
Against Nate Robinson.
Yeah,
that's gonna be. I saw that last night. I was like, Jesus, that's gonna be a joke of a fight.
Yeah, and so when we talk about that in 2 weeks, I want to bring up my man Willie Monroe. We're gonna have a little conversation about him. Because going with what I've said about these guys like Jake Paul and these YouTubers going in there getting paid, and guys that have come from a certain place and worked really hard, like Willie's one of those guys, and because his name is up there to fight Canelo, I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, and how a guy that's worked really hard that I know personally is getting what he deserves.
Cool. So, that sounds good to me. Gotta try to get him on.
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Talk to you guys next week. If you guys have any questions or any suggestions, at Immortal Boxing, right? Immortals Boxing.
Immortals Boxing, yep.
And then Brandon _ Gallagher. Drop us some messages. We'll see you next week.
Check out the YouTube channel.
Immortals Boxing on YouTube. Talk to you next week. Peace.